3D printer. 3D printer.
3D printer is a printer attached to a computer that can make a solid object from a digital model by printing many separate layers of the object. 3D printer is a piece of equipment that makes objects by building up thin layers of a substance, following a digital design. A computer-controlled device that is capable of fabricating three-dimensional objects, as by extruding layers of plastic from a robotically controlled syringe. With this state-of-the-art 3D printer, you can turn your ideas into real objects. The car's entire body, seats, and windshield are printed by a 3D printer and are made out of carbon fiber and plastic. What is a 3D printer? Machines that transform 3D objects designed in a virtual environment into tangible objects in solid form are called 3D printers. 3D printers, additive manufacturing, also known as additive manufacturing, is a device that produces models designed on a computer or prepared in 3D quickly, using various materials, without the need for an extra mold or fixture. What does a 3D printer do? With 3D printing technology, you can print an apparatus you need, print out an object you scan with a 3D scanner, prototype a design you have drawn, or even create your own product. In short, you can print anything you want with 3D printers. The history of 3D printers. 3D printers first joined us in 1984 by Charles W. Hull. With the establishment of the first 3D printer company named 3D Systems in 1986, such a sector was formed for the first time. 3D printing technology gained speed in the 90s and the first color printing was taken in this time period in America. For the first time, in 2007, it released printers that could prototype its own parts. Thanks to the project, we started to include 3D printers in our homes. The basis of this study is to reduce the cost and expand the use. Today, we can see how advanced it has reached. Main materials used in 3D printers: ABS, acrylonitrile butadiene, PLA, polylactic acid, and TPU, thermoplastic polyurethane. What is a 3D printer used for? Usage areas of 3D printers. Today, three-dimensional printer technology is widely used in many countries in jewelry, accessories, shoe design, industrial and architectural designs, civil engineering, construction works, automotive industry, aerospace, dentistry and medicine, education, geographic information systems and scientific studies in different fields. Small and improved desktop models of these printers, which have been used in the industrial sector for a while, are now able to enter our homes. When 3D printers enter our homes, we will be able to produce the product we need on our own. How does a 3D printer work? The working logic of 3D printers is that any three-dimensional model creates the model by overwriting it by melting the plastic with layering technology. Printing consists of 3 stages. The user first draws the model he wants to make or finds it ready and converts this model to STL file format and successfully completes the first stage. In the printing process, the object is created by laying on top of each other in layers. These layers are made by different methods such as plastic melting, laser sintering, stereolithography. Finally, the objects we create with the 3D printer may contain errors or supports. In this case, a final surface cleaning, improvement or development finishing operations can be applied. What is 3D printing? 3D printing, or additive manufacturing, is the process of making three-dimensional solid objects from a digital file. What should be considered when buying a 3D printer? The 3D printer must have long-lasting and reliable hardware. The software of the 3D printer is a very important factor for print quality. The software of the 3D printer transfers the 3D drawing on the computer to the printer and calculates the print quality, print consistency, and stability. When comparing 3D printers, one of the most important factors is its consistent and stable operation. Many 3D printers can print quality, but may not perform the same in different drawings. It should have a resolution of 100 micron, 0.1 mm, layer thickness, and print details. The raw material price used by the 3D printer is reflected in the costs. When buying a 3D printer, it should be preferred to purchase it from a reliable company that can provide the necessary training for both the parts problems that may occur in the printer and the correct use. One of the most asked questions: how much electricity does a 3D printer consume? The question is: in the technical specifications of the printer you are using, the max. You can make this calculation by considering the electricity consumption value. Do not forget that this value is the consumption of your printer when it is running at full power, when using a material such as PLA, where you can print without using a heating plate. Your printer will consume much less electricity. What is a 3D printer? Our article is over. Now come to 20 strange objects produced with 3D printers. Frequently asked questions about 3D printers. What is a 3D printer? What is it for? Where is it used? Machines that transform 3D objects designed in a virtual environment into tangible objects in solid form are called 3D printers. 3D printers, additive manufacturing, also known as additive manufacturing, is a device that produces models designed on a computer or prepared in 3D quickly, using various materials, without the need for an extra mold or fixture. With 3D printing technology, you can print an apparatus you need, print out an object you scan with a 3D scanner, prototype a design you have drawn, or even create your own product. In short, you can print anything you want with 3D printers. What can be done with 3D printers? We can create any 3D objects and objects with 3D printers. It will be very easy to create new designs by combining your imagination and creativity with these machines. The object you design and draw with any CAD software can be created in a short time with a 3D printer. Usage area of three-dimensional printers. It is very broad. To list some of these areas below: toy industry, customized toy printing is done. Model making and robot design. Jewelry design for jewelers. Personalized gift design. Spare parts in industry. It is used for the part design of any product or machine. Product development and designers, used to realize designed products for new product design. Molders, it is used to print prototypes to reduce the cost of molds. Architects and construction companies, it is used to obtain a model of a new project cheaply and quickly. Medical applications, 3D printers with many applications in the medical sector and prostheses, plastic plaster, etc. You can use it to produce bespoke robots, toys, or accessories. The outer bodies and large parts of products such as automobiles and airplanes will be produced much faster than today with large printers in factories. The spare parts of some classic cars, which are difficult to find in the market, are already produced with 3D printers. How much electricity does a 3D printer consume? In the technical specifications of the printer you are using, the max. You can make this calculation by considering the electricity consumption value. Do not forget that this value is the consumption of your printer when it is running at full power, when using a material such as PLA, where you can print without using a heating plate. Your printer will consume much less electricity. How to use a 3D printer, step-by-step guide for beginners. There's no doubt that 3D printing is on the rise for at-home use. More and more people are discovering the amazing applications that this technology can be used for. But for those who are just starting out, it can be a little daunting to know where to begin. In this article, we will give you the essential information on how 3D printing works and explain how to get started using a 3D printer. What is 3D printing? 3D printing is a process of making three-dimensional solid objects from a digital file. The creation of a 3D printed object is achieved using additive processes, where successive layers of material are laid down in different shapes to create an object. Types of 3D printers. There are a variety of 3D printers available on the market, so it's important to do your research to find the right one for your needs. Here are some types of 3D printers. Fused Deposition Modeling, FDM, printer. This is the most common type of 3D printer. It extrudes melted plastic filament through a nozzle to build up objects layer by layer. Stereolithography, SLA, printer. This printer uses a laser to cure liquid resin into solid layers. Selective Laser Sintering, SLS, printer. This printer uses a laser to fuse together small particles of plastic, metal, or glass. The general process for using a 3D printer. The following steps will give you a general idea of how to use a 3D printer. Please refer to your printer's manual for more accurate instructions. Prepare a 3D model for printing. To print a 3D object, you first need a digital 3D model of the object. There are a few different ways to create a 3D model. Use CAD software like Fusion 360, SolidWorks, Creo, Siemens NX, etc. Scan an existing object. Download a ready-made 3D model from an online repository. Once you have your 3D model, you will need to prepare it for printing. This involves slicing the model into thin layers and generating a printing path for the printer to follow. This step is usually done using specialized software designed for 3D printing like Cora, 3D Printer OS, IdeaMaker, KIS Slicer, RepetierHost, Octoprint. It is advisable to download a compatible slicing software for the 3D printer you intend to use. Select and load the printing material. 3D printers use a filament to create objects, which can be a plastic or metal wire that's fed into the printer through a spool. There are many different types of filaments available, each with its own unique properties. The most common type of filament is PLA. Other popular types of filaments include ABS, PTG, nylon, and TPU. Each material has its own unique set of properties, so it's important to choose the right one for your project. How to load a 3D printer with filament. The process for loading filament into a 3D printer varies depending on the type of printer you have, so please refer to your printer's manual. However, most printers follow a similar process. Remove any existing filament from the printer. To do this, heat up the extruder to the filament's melting point and then push the filament back through the nozzle until it comes out the other end. Once the filament is completely removed, you can proceed to load in the new filament. To load in a new filament, remove the spool of filament from its packaging and cut the end of the filament at an angle. Locate the filament loading port on your 3D printer. This is usually at the back of the printer. Insert the end of the filament into the loading port until you hear a clicking sound. The filament should now be secured in the loading port. To feed the filament into the extruder, turn on the 3D printer and wait for it to heat up to the correct temperature. Once it's heated up, press the extrude button on the 3D printer's control panel. This will begin feeding the filament into the extruder. Keep an eye on the filament as it's being extruded to make sure it's coming out evenly. If it's not, you can try adjusting the feed rate. Once the filament is extruded, the 3D printer is ready for printing. Send the 3D model to the printer. Once the printing material is ready, it's time to send the 3D model design as an STL file to the printer and let it do its thing. How you send the file will vary depending on the type of 3D printer you are using, but typically you will need to connect the computer to the printer using a USB cable or USB drive. Once the file is sent, simply hit the print button in the slicing software and the printer will start creating the 3D object layer by layer. The printing process can take anywhere from a few minutes to a few hours or days, depending on the size and complexity of the model. After the printing is complete, the model is ready for post-processing, such as removing supports, sanding, gluing, etc. Getting the best results from 3D printing. Here are some tips that can help you improve the results of your 3D printing projects. Use high-quality filament. This is especially important if you're using an FFF/FDM 3D printer. Cheap filaments can clog the nozzle and cause all sorts of problems. Not to mention, the prints won't look as good. Use the right settings. Every filament is different and will require different print settings. Be sure to consult the filament's datasheet to find the optimal settings for your print. Don't forget about support. If you're printing with ABS or another material that tends to warp, be sure to use supports in your design. This will help prevent the print from warping or distorting during the printing process. Take your time. Rushing through the design process will only lead to problems down the road. Be sure to take your time and double-check your work before printing. This will help save you time and money in the long run. The most important thing is to be patient. It can take some time to get good prints. Choose the right infill setting for your project. Infill is the percentage of your model that is filled with material. For example, a 20% infill means that 80% of the model will be empty space. For structural parts or functional prototypes, you will want to use a higher infill setting, like 50% or more. This will make the part stronger and more durable. For objects that don't need to be as strong, like sculptures or decorative items, you can use a lower infill setting like 10 to 20%, which will save you time in filament while still giving you a good-looking print. Post-process your prints. Post-processing is the process of cleaning up your prints after they have been printed. This can include sanding, painting, or using a finish to give the print a smooth surface. Post-processing is often necessary to achieve a high-quality finish. It's also a great way to add your own personal touch to your creations. Check the printer regularly. Be sure to check on the printer regularly while it's printing. This will help you catch any potential problems early on and prevent them from becoming bigger issues. Have fun. 3D printing is a great way to unleash your creativity. So, don't be afraid to experiment and have fun with it. Troubleshooting common problems with 3D printing. If you're having trouble with your 3D printer, here are a few tips that may help. Check the filament. The first thing you should do if you're having trouble with a print is to check the filament. Make sure it's the correct type and size for the printer and that it's been stored properly. Check the settings. The next thing you should do is to check the settings in the slicing software. Be sure that the layer height, infill, and other settings are all correct for the print. Check the bed level. If your prints are coming out poorly or not sticking to the build plate, it's possible that your bed isn't level. Be sure to level the bed before starting a print. Check the nozzle. If your prints are coming out stringy or with gaps, the nozzle may be clogged. Be sure to clean the nozzle regularly to prevent this from happening. What is an FFF/FDM 3D printer? FFF/FDM 3D printers are the most common type of consumer-grade 3D printer. They work by extruding a filament of plastic or other material through a heated nozzle to build up layers of material. What is the best 3D printer for beginners? There is no one best 3D printer for beginners. It depends on your budget and what you want to use it for. How much does a 3D printer cost? 3D printers range in price from around $200 to $5,000 or more. The price depends on the features and quality of the printer. Where can I find help if I run into problems? If you have any problems with your 3D printer, don't hesitate to reach out to the manufacturer or your local 3D printing community for support. There are plenty of people who are more than happy to help you troubleshoot your issues. What is the best filament to use? There is no one best filament to use. It depends on your specific needs and what you're trying to print. Some filaments are better for certain applications than others. For example, ABS is a good choice for functional parts because it's strong and durable. PLA is a good choice for decorative items because it's easy to print with and has a wide range of colors. Consult your filament's datasheet to find the optimal settings for your print. What are the benefits of 3D printing? 3D printing offers many benefits over traditional manufacturing methods. It's more affordable, faster, and easier to produce custom or one-of-a-kind items. 3D printing also allows you to create complex shapes that would be difficult or impossible to create using other methods. How do I know what print settings to use? There is no one perfect set of print settings. It depends on your specific printer, filament, and object. Consult your printer's manual and the filament datasheet to find the optimal settings for your print. What are some common problems with 3D printing? Some common problems with 3D printing include warping, poor surface finish, stringing, and clogging. These problems can often be avoided by using the proper settings for your printer and filament. If you're having trouble with your prints, reach out to the manufacturer or your local 3D printing community for help. Can I use any 3D model? Yes, but keep in mind that not all models are created equal. Some models may be too complex or have too many small details to print successfully. It's always a good idea to test print a model before trying to print the final version. How long does it take to 3D print an object? The time it takes to 3D print an object depends on the size and complexity of the object. A simple object can take just a few minutes to print, while a more complex object can take hours or even days. Final thought on 3D printers. 3D printing is an exciting technology with endless possibilities. We hope this overview has given you a better understanding of how it works and how you can get started using a 3D printer. Happy printing! Thanks for watching.